Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The UK could have a fairer, more humane immigration system that would work better for the economy if it left the EU. That's the latest claim from the Leave campaigners. They want to end the automatic right for EU citizens to live and work here and to accept only those of value to the economy. But those campaigning to remain said such a system would wreck the economy and could drive up immigration. Our political editor Laura Kunzberg reports.
Their biggest names, their biggest promise so far.
Is it not time we took back control of our immigration policy?
Being in the EU means people from 27 other countries can come here and we can go there too. But they want exit and an end to all that.
You're stitching things up, are you?
Yes.
Good, well, we can talk about another big stitch up.
Along with the gags, outers are offering a point system where all immigrants would be judged on what they can offer, not where they're from.
What we're saying is, have a system whereby the UK government has to take responsibility and agree the numbers.
But can you guarantee that immigration would actually fall under your plans?
I think that is very, very likely, but that's up to the government, and they would have to decide what the needs of UK business and industry were.
Those who are the brightest and the best with the right skills for our economy would be welcome here, and actually this would be a fairer system.
What your rivals say is if we give up EU people being able to move around the UK, that would have a huge effect on the economy. They say it would wreck the economy.
I think that's obvious nonsense.
Look like they're starting to enjoy this campaign. Well, maybe that's because they are. They're sure their promise of more controls on immigration is one that voters will like. But maybe this referendum will come down to a choice, a trade-off between tighter rules on immigration and what their opponents claim would be serious damage to the economy that every worker would feel.
The most senior union leader in the country said the idea was a con and warned leaving could hit pay packets by nearly £40 a week.
The big threat to wages is a Brexit, because that will really hit our economy, productivity and ultimately people's pay packets. If we want to avoid another recession, the best thing to do is to vote to remain.
The OECD, respected number crunchers, cautioned if we leave the table, economic shockwaves might be felt right round the world. And the hypothetical end of EU migration has alarmed David Cameron's political friends.
It would be unavoidable, inevitable for us, and I think for many others in Europe, to follow the same proposals, to implement a point system also in the rest of the European Union. So you would get a race to the bottom.
We want our country back, yeah?
Most politicians used to be squeamish about talking immigration, but it's part of this campaign and his long-term game.
Australia looks at what it thinks it needs to expand its country. It's growing its country, so it takes more people pro rata than we would, but the point about it is they can choose.
Outers of all stripes think there is mileage in it, but as they take more and more messages around the country, it doesn't feel like this is just about the referendum anymore.
It feels now like you're all setting out some kind of alternative Tory vision for after the referendum. What are you really up to?
After we vote leave on June the 23rd, it will be up to the government to take back control of not just of immigration policy, but obviously of huge sums of money, of our ability to set our economic and political priorities.
So you are setting out an alternative vision for a very different sounding kind of government.
I think pretty well you answer this question. I think the answer to that is no.
Just about sticking to the script, at least for now. But depending on what you decide, in 3 weeks, that might all change. Laura Kunzberg, BBC News, Preston.
So what impact might the Leave campaigners' plans have on UK immigration? Well, latest figures show that net migration, that's the difference between the number of those arriving and those leaving, was 330,000 for last year. That includes 184,000 people from EU countries and 188,000 from non-EU countries. They already come in under the points-based system that Leave campaigners want applied to EU migrants too. But what effect would that have on employers and their workers? Here's our chief correspondent, Gavin Hewitt.
For those coming to our shores, these proposed plans would mark a fundamental change to how the migration rules work. EU citizens would no longer just travel here for work. They would have to pass a series of tests. Some businesses, like this Bangladeshi restaurant in Kent, would welcome the changes. They say they can't get the skilled chefs they want from Bangladesh, and curry houses here are closing. They want a system of migration that doesn't favour Europeans.
I welcome any fairer immigration policy, but I believe the British immigration policy is unfair, a double standard policy. One for the European Union and one for the British citizen for non-European Union.
Currently, EU citizens have the automatic right to live and work in the UK. Non-EU citizens face a series of hurdles. They have to be high-value workers with job offers, or students or temporary workers. Under the proposed system, EU citizens would lose their automatic right to come here. They would need points awarded for needed skills, an available job and English. But some businesses are fiercely opposed to the plans. This is a large lettuce farm in Kent. It depends on unskilled workers from the EU, 120 migrants, mainly from Romania. Without them, the business would struggle.
I believe in patrolling the borders and policing the borders, but the horticultural sector in particular, and our business, requires a high percentage of unskilled workers.
So what would happen if the unskilled workers couldn't get on the lists and come here?
Well, we've tried in the past to recruit from the local job centres. It hasn't worked. I would seriously worry for the future of my business.
This proposed point system would signify a break with the principle of freedom of movement within the EU. It would also raise doubts about continued access to the single market. And it's also far from clear whether a point system would reduce or increase the numbers of migrants coming here.
Points-based systems have traditionally been used to increase rather than reduce migration. That said, any system that imposed new restrictions on EU citizens, whether that's a points-based system or another form of selection, would be expected to reduce the numbers compared to the status quo.
Some say a points system actually promotes migration, but the Leave campaign argues the system would restore control over immigration. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News, Kent.